There were many versions of Hogwarts over the years, both in the movies, but also in all the different video games. But Hogwarts Legacy's version of the castle is something truly unique, and I believe this is as close as we've ever gotten to a perfect Hogwarts, at least in terms of the video games. The world that Avalanche have built, from Hogwarts to Hogsmeade and the vast open world in general, is absolutely amazing. Besides being a beautiful game, you can truly tell the passion that went into designing the world. But in this video, I'll be focusing on Hogwarts itself. Maybe I'll make a video about the whole world, including Hogsmeade and everything else, or perhaps just the whole game in general in the future. But in this video, I'd like to do a bit of a deep dive into just Hogwarts. Now, the developers at Avalanche clearly took great care in making sure that their designs lined up with previous Harry Potter content, in particular the movies. While not everything is the same, that is completely okay, and in fact, I think it's better that they decided to change some things on their own. The Harry Potter movies aren't exactly consistent with the look of the castle, so that in and of itself leaves a lot of room for Avalanche to play around with. So let's begin with the outside of the castle and the ground surrounding it. When you look up at the castle, you can't help but feel small, and that's exactly how you're supposed to feel. With its enormous towers, great walls and huge doors, you can't help but feel impressed at the sheer magnitude of the school. And it lines up really well with what we've seen previously. Obviously Hogwarts changed a lot in the movies, but it lines up with, for example, the first shot we saw of Hogwarts in the Philosopher's Stone, as well as taking a lot of stuff from later versions, that being the Prisoner of Azkaban and forward, like the Clock Tower courtyard, the Clock Tower itself and more. Speaking of the Clock Tower courtyard, walking through there and across the bridge down towards Hagrid's hut was such an awesome feeling. The Prisoner of Azkaban is my favorite Harry Potter movie, and you can tell that they modeled this part of the castle mainly after that movie. The bridge looks pretty much identical, and going past the big rocks you get down to Hagrid's hut, just like in the movie. The location is clearly different here, with him being towards the lake instead of being right next to the forest, which is a bit weird, considering that his hut has always been kind of a barrier from the Forbidden Forest and the school in a way. There's always been this big deal about students not entering the Forbidden Forest, but that happening seems a lot less likely when they have to physically leave the school grounds and walk about halfway to Hogsmeade to even get to the forest. I mean, where it's situated in the game is probably a lot safer for the children, but you know. I do kinda wish that we would have the forest closer to the castle, but I understand why they designed things the way they did. I'm guessing that it just didn't really fit with the way they wanted to design their world, and I mean, hey, you can have everything. Overall though, I'm really happy with the location of Hagrid's hut and the path down there and everything, and I think that Avalanche did a great job in trying to fit in the differences that we've seen in the castle, grounds, and in this case, Hagrid's hut over the course of the movies. The Owlery is just beautiful as well, and I think it's exactly where it should be on the map. It just looks and feels right, with the whole walk up there and the actual Owlery itself. It's always been described as being a bit away from the school, which is always how we see it as well, which is probably smart given that I can imagine that the noise they make is very fun to listen to. And the fact that they made it so big, it makes it feel like it can actually house all of the owls as well. And if we move on and look at all of the courtyards, besides just the Clock Tower courtyard, I think they're all great. They're filled with life and students, and they look so similar to the movies. Standing in the Vita courtyard, I can really picture the scene where Umbridge kicks Trelawney out of the school just right in front of me. Or when all the students are standing and looking at the Beauxbatons carriages and the Durmstrang's boat making their way toward the school. Or when standing in the Transfiguration courtyard, I can practically see Draco turning into a fairy before my very eyes. Walking around this version of Hogwarts, it actually feels like you're there. Like you're actually walking around Hogwarts and not just a depiction of it. With owls swooping around, sitting on ledges, and the cats that belong to students walking about the place waiting for you to pet them, it just really makes the place feel filled with life. Finally, the Quidditch pitch is amazing as well. Now while it's not used a lot in the game, it's stunning and looks almost identical to the movie versions we see. The only thing that's changed here really is the location. There's not much to say about it except for the fact that I'm really happy that they clearly put so much effort into something that they pretty much didn't even end up using anyway. Everything from the stands to the pitch to the outside is just so well crafted. Generally, I think I prefer the way we see it in the movies, where it's a bit more situated away from Hogwarts, but I mean, this still works really great. The herbology classrooms for me are something though that I wish would have been done differently. In the movies, and as described in the books, the greenhouses are located a bit away from the school. I mean, they're supposed to be like real greenhouses. In this game, however, the greenhouses are a part of a bigger building that's connected directly to Hogwarts. I'm guessing that this was done just as a stylistic choice, and they probably just thought it looked better. Personally, I do wish they would have gone for kind of the style that the Chamber of Secrets took when it came to the greenhouses. I know that this is just a personal thing, but I like the look of these a lot more. Just like Carry Magical Creatures takes place outside, having the students exit Hogwarts to go to the greenhouses just feels more in line with nature in a way. I think it also makes it seem like a big ordeal with the different levels of greenhouses, as to say. When they're just clumped together and let's say you take the right door instead of the left, it doesn't really feel like there's any differences in the greenhouses really. Especially when they're just connected to each other. The greenhouses are said to house more and more dangerous plants the higher number on the greenhouse. Completely separating them I think makes this feel more impactful in a way. Now I'm not saying that the whole place with the greenhouses doesn't look amazing in the game, because it absolutely does, and I think they made a great job with what they did, but I would personally have liked it better if they went more with the Chamber of Secrets look. Moving inside, whether you're Slytherin, Gryffindor, Ravenclaw or Hufflepuff, you can still feel the magic in the common rooms. They're absolutely beautiful, and you can tell that Avalanche took great care in constructing them, so no matter what house you belong in, the magic stays the same. A problem with the movies is that the common rooms we saw, that being the Gryffindor and Slytherin common rooms, could feel really small and compact. I mean, the school is supposed to host an enormous amount of students, yet this was not reflected in the common rooms. I feel like Hogwarts Legacy largely fixed this problem while still keeping that cozy feeling of those smaller common rooms we've seen before. You've also got a lot of students sitting around playing chess, chatting and more, and it makes you feel like there's actual life in these common rooms. Now, since students are supposed to spend so much time here, these are some of the most important places in the school. They also fixed the problem with the dormitories, that being, where does everyone sleep? In the movies, they never really showed where all of these students sleep, but here we get to see that there's obviously loads of dormitories to fit all of these students. Moving on, another iconic place is the Great Hall, with its floating candles and bewitched ceiling. I mean, there's not much to say here either. Perhaps I say that it's a bit small, but I mean, that was a problem in the movies too. Overall, this version is beautiful though, and the fact that it changes so much based on the seasons is awesome. The giant staircase is incredibly done as well, with all the different and unique paintings around the wall. I mean, I really could walk around and look at them for ages. I think actually that this is one of the most impressive places in the whole castle. Now, obviously we can't discuss the inside of Hogwarts without talking about one of the most important parts of the school, that being the classrooms. All of the classrooms are beautiful, and many of them look very similar to what we see in the movies, especially the potions and defense against the dark arts classrooms. Their actual designs are gorgeous, but besides that, there's this kind of feeling of magic in the air, as to say, when you're in the classrooms. You got things like the bubbling potions in the potions classroom and all the objects placed around the defense against the dark arts classroom, each presumably having their own magical purpose. That adds to the feeling of mystery and magic to the classrooms. The iconic dragon skeleton that we all know is included as well, with them even giving us some backstory as to how it got there. But they didn't just nail the classrooms that we see in the movies. A great example of a classroom that we never see in the movies but read about in the books is the History of Magic classroom. Somehow, despite me having never seen this classroom before and them having no real visual inspiration to go off of, it just feels right. It looks great, and it even has this kind of, in a way, stifling feel to it. In the books, we have people falling asleep during the class, partly because of Professor Binns, of course, but I reckon that sitting in a hot and packed classroom probably doesn't help keep you awake. And the classroom having these big glass panes with sunshine shining through them, warming up the pretty little and packed room, gives you this feeling of it being stuffy in a way. Which is how I always imagined the History of Magic classroom. Like I said, this classroom just feels like it fits perfectly, even though it's a completely original work from Avalanche's part. It just shows how well they really understand Hogwarts. Lastly, I'd just like to touch on the rumor requirement. I'm really happy that this was included, and the way it was incorporated I think was great. With the room expanding and new vivariums unlocking with you making your way through the story, it really felt like you were making actual progress. It's a great way to really visualize how you're evolving as a wizard. And I know that some other people thought that caring for the creatures was boring, but I really liked it. I mean, magical beasts are some of the things that fascinate me most about the wizarding world, so I was really happy that they were included in such a large capacity. Now, obviously the common rooms, Great Hall, the staircase and more are impressive, but it's really the little things that truly make this version stand out. I found myself walking from corridor to corridor, finding new rooms and new things that made me go, oh my god, this is in the game too? Even after playing for well over 100 hours, I found new rooms and things while simply searching for remaining collectibles that just blew my mind. Something that comes to mind is how I, after almost 100% of the game, stumbled upon Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. And as I walk into this bathroom, I look for a little snake on the center left bathroom tap, and don't you know it, it's right there, along with a Revelio page with a sneaky reference to it. I mean, I thought I found everything at this point, but there were still places to find. Quick side note here, Avalanche actually kind of fixed an issue here as well. In the books, Moaning Myrtle's bathroom is supposed to be on the second floor, but since there's a pipe that leads to the Chamber of Secrets in the bathroom, it does make a lot more sense for the bathroom to be as far down in the castle as possible. So Avalanche's version actually makes more sense. I also like all the little Easter eggs and references, like Sebastian mentioning the book Secrets of the Darkest Art when in the restricted section.
Secrets of the Darkest Arts. I'm impressed.
Which, if you didn't know, is a book that Voldemort uses when learning about Horcruxes. Another Easter egg that comes to mind is this painting here, which I believe to be a painting of Wendell the Weird, who is mentioned in the Prisoner of Azkaban book, and she was a witch that enjoyed being burned on the stake so much that she allowed herself to be caught 47 times in different disguises. I love that they added these little references that aren't that obvious and that only people that know quite a lot about Harry Potter would recognize. alongside the more obvious Easter eggs and throwbacks to the books and movies, such as this description here in Hagrid's hut, which is clearly a reference to Hagrid with the quote, "as large as the occupant may need," or this cup in its transfiguration classroom that looks exactly like Ron's failed transfiguration attempt in the Chamber of Secrets movie. The painting of Gwendolyn the Weird, for example, was something I didn't notice until I was on my 3rd character while just getting the last achievements to 100% the game. It just adds to the feeling of there always being new things to find. This mix of obvious and not so obvious references are great since there are things for everyone, and it's fun as someone who knows quite a lot about the Harry Potter world to find these more hidden references, as one could say. Anyway, moving on from that, in the same session that I found the bathroom, I also found the Death Day party room, and it was so much fun as a fan to stumble upon these locations that I've read about and also the locations that I've seen in the movies. They chose to mainly use the look of Hogwarts from the movies, especially from the Prisoner of Azkaban and forward, yet still changed some things to their own liking, but not enough to throw you off. They could honestly have just copy and pasted the halls of Hogwarts and skipped loads of the smaller rooms that a lot of people won't even find if they just follow the story, and I don't think they would have received that much criticism for it. But they didn't do that. They took great care in crafting each room, each corridor and even each painting that sits on the walls of the huge staircase, which is exactly what made this Hogwarts so great. It feels like there's always more things to explore, and I mean, that feeling is exactly what you're supposed to feel when exploring Hogwarts. Just like how in the books, Dumbledore says that he still finds new things about the castle, you as a player feel the same. There are always new things to find and explore, and it really immerses you in the game. I mean, really, Sebastian puts it best.
It is that. I've been there 5 years and barely scratched the surface. Loads to see, places to discover.
Now, in terms of video games, I would say that the Hogwarts in Hogwarts Legacy is essentially a mix of the castle from the game Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, and the original 3 Harry Potter games, the Philosopher's Stone, the Chamber of Secrets, and the Prisoner of Azkaban. I've only played the PC version of the original 3 games. I do own the PS2 versions as well, but I haven't gotten around to playing those, but from what I've seen online, the difference in the castles don't seem gigantic overall. But anyway, since I grew up playing the PC games, those are what I'm going to use as an example here. Hogwarts and the Order of the Phoenix felt very alive, with students all over the place and talking to each other and addressing you as the player while you walk past. It was also gigantic, which meant that you could run around and explore a lot. However, it did also lack in other aspects. For example, it lacked the puzzles and things to find while exploring that the first 3 games had. Something that comes to mind just as a quick example is the way you have to use different spells in the first games to progress in missions, but also to find a lot of collectibles and hidden areas. The same concept is used in all the 3 first games, although what spells are used varies a bit. While Hogwarts Legacy may not feature as many puzzles, something that does come to mind are the Depulso puzzles. And while not perfect, I think they were a good addition still, and it's the closest thing we have gotten to a throwback to those early Harry Potter games. Things like the frogs that you jump into and the secret rooms unlocked by certain codes are puzzle-like mechanics as well. Another thing is that back in the Prisoner of Azkaban, you had collectible chocolate frog cards that included pictures of famous witches and wizards on them with little descriptions about them, and these are supposed to be like the chocolate frog cards that are in the books and movies. You can try to collect all of them if you want, which will involve having to find secret and hidden areas. In Hogwarts Legacy, they took the same concept but replaced the cards with people on them with Revelio pages that give information about places instead. Personally, I think this change is great as it helps immerse you more and it gives you more backstories for different places. This all leads to my point of how Hogwarts Legacy in a way combines the earlier Harry Potter games and the Order of the Phoenix and takes the best things from both. It takes the feel of the gigantic and alive Hogwarts filled with people and combines it with the more puzzle-based way of the earlier games. And this makes for a truly great Hogwarts experience. The professors are also something that I want to talk about. While they're all unique in their own way, they still have enough similar traits to the professors from the books and movies to bring back those memories for us players. Professor Sharp is probably the most prevalent example, even looking a bit similar to Snape and having a similar name. He's a bit snarky and not impressed easily, just like Snape, but he's still his own character. Sharp is fair and not even close to being as much of an asshole, to be completely honest, as Snape was. On top of this, his backstory is completely different, as is his teaching style. And this is exactly what I think that Avalanche did so great in. They made these new characters, yet made them remind us of the characters that we know and love, without making some kind of copies. And also, the throwback with the Weasley name was a welcome surprise to many fans, I'm sure, and it was for me at least. Now, while all of the normal professors are likable, the headmaster is certainly not. Headmaster Black is shown to be a stuck-up and narcissistic man, which is perfect. In the Harry Potter lore, Black is widely known as the worst and most unpopular headmaster the school has ever seen, so it's also very fitting that they made him the reason that Quidditch isn't around. Speaking of Quidditch, I'm a bit sad that it wasn't in the game, but I get that they had to limit themselves in some regard. I wish there would have been more flying content since the broom races were great and Quidditch would have been great in that regard, but I mean hey, it is what it is. Using Black as the reason why Quidditch wasn't around though was really brilliant. It gives us all the more reason to unlike the man who is already quite unlikable. Going around you even hear the students talking about him, and let's just say that they don't like him a lot.
It's so nice to hear the bells again. Thank you for putting things right, and annoying Professor Black in the process.
I mean, you can see why he's supposed to be one of the least popular headmasters ever. And I must say that his character is very well done in terms of keeping true to the Harry Potter books, where his portrait's personality is quite similar, throwing off remarks and complaining constantly. So, to run this video off, this is the Hogwarts that I wanted for so long. Even when just walking around the school in general, it makes me feel like I'm actually there. It feels like I'm walking around Hogwarts and not just a depiction of it. And that's why this might be the best version of Hogwarts we've ever seen. At least no video game depiction comes even close. Now, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you agree or disagree with something I said, I'd love it if you dropped a comment down below. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.